So, hi Krishna, welcome to today's session on the Canto 3, Chapter 11 overview. So, we are currently in this section 2 of Canto 3, where we are primarily discussing about Sarga and Visarga, creation and secondary creation, primary and secondary creations. So, in this particular chapter, we'll be seeing about time. So, just a quick recap of how we are here. So, this canto begins with the sages asking for to know about Padma Kalpa, and Shaunaka, Sutta Goswami told the Shaunakadi rishis, yes, I'll explain about Padma Kalpa in the way that Shukadeva Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj, because Shukadeva Goswami also spoke to Parikshit Maharaj about the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, which was also which was also in relation to the Padma Kalpa. So both the questions kind of merge. And here in Canto 3, Shukadeva Goswami started speaking about how Vidura left home and met Uddhava, and Uddhava directed him to go and meet Maitreya. And when once he met Maitreya, he asked about the creation of the universe. And in the course of the creation of the universe, they spoke about the Padma Kalpa and also how the whole primary creation happened, and then the manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Brahma offering prayers to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then there are divisions of the creation that we saw last week, how there are different types of creation within the primary and the secondary creation also. And then now, in between, when Maitreya Rishi was speaking about the creation, subdivisions of the creations, Vidura asked about the time factor, the energy of the Supreme Lord. So Maitreya very briefly explained about time in chapter 10. But now he has completed his description of the secondary creation. So in the chapter 11, he is going to speak about the time factor in detail based on the questions that Vidura had asked. So that is the reason in this chapter suddenly we are shifting our gears to see what about time, because so far the creation account is going on, primary and secondary. There's no reason suddenly to jump into this kind of a topic about time. But why Maitreya is doing this? Because Vidura asked a question. So he completed the topic that he was doing, and then now he is speaking about the time factor. So this chapter has 42 verses, and there are small themes which is all related to time. So first of all, before explaining how to divide the time or the divisions of time, uh, the understanding of matter is given, and then from that, calculation of time, and then various other aspects like duration of the yugas, duration of the manvantras, and Brahma's lifespan. All these are discussed. So we will see as the chapter comes up. So this is what I just was explaining how, because in the chapter 10, Vidura asked a question about time factor. That is the reason here Maitreya is taking a separate chapter, a separate discussion on the time. So that's what we are going to see in this particular chapter. Anybody has any questions from the previous week or so far in this particular section? If there is none, then we can just get into this topic of time. So, if you remember the questions of Vidura that he had asked about the time in the previous chapters, he said, please describe the symptoms of eternal time, which is another form of the Lord. And he also asked about time factor in the previous, like Parikshit Maharaj asked in 2.8, Canto 2, Chapter 8, and Vidura asked in 3.5. So, there are previous questions also about time factor. So now Maitreya Rishi is beginning to speak about time. But the problem is, time is, as Maitreya Rishi explained in the previous chapter, it is a very imperceptible and a very difficult aspect to actually experience. Even though we experience, to analytically see it or to divide it, it's not so very easy. So that is why, because the nature of time is very subtle, he begins with describing the matter, how the matter is divided, and then based on that divisions of the matter, the time will be calculated. So that's why he is first of all starting with atoms. So the ultimate smallest particle in the material manifestation here is called as Paramanu. Anu is atom, which is the indivisible and invisible unit. The smallest unit in the creation you can say is the Paramanu, the atom. So there are innumerable such particles in this universe. And then uh, when just these atoms are put together, say for example, in without having creating any objects, if you just collect all these atoms, that would be called as the Paramamahan, so the greatest particle of matter, which you can call also as the Mahatattva or Pradhan. So divisions of time is like just as matter has small and big divisions, but as Paramanu and Paramamahan, time also has smaller and bigger divisions. So since the potency of the Lord, it's a time is an all is the potency of the Supreme Lord. How to calculate it is based on this particular divisions of matter. So now there is atom and there is atomic time. So the time covered by the sun passing over an atom, the smallest division of matter, is the Paramanuttam, which is the atomic time. And there is Paramamahan time, which is the time extended from the beginning of creation till the dissolution of the universe. So the whole time that elapses is called as the Paramamahan time. So it is depending on the matter, the time is also divided. So the Paramanu, which is the atom, is the time for the sun to pass one Paramanu, and then Anu is the double atom. So the conversion factor becomes two Paramanus, and Trasraino is three Anus. So in this way they calculate. So when it comes to Truti, so from Truti it begins. So this is the calculation according to the modern time that Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport. So this is how the time is. This is the 8 by 13,500 part of a second is a Truti. So in this way they calculate. There is 100 Trutis makes Veda, 3 Vedas make a Lava, then 3 Lavas make a Nimesha, 3 Nimeshas make a Kshana. We have heard all these different terms in different shlokas, but I never like thought there is so much. We say Sadhu Sangha, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha. And Nimeshadakyo va vrajati yatrapi samaya, or like Nimesha is many places we see. Kshana Bangura, so Kshana also we see. Truti Yuga Yate, so in the Gopi Geet it is, they say Truti Yuga Yate. Means even a Truti seems like a Yuga. So in this way we have heard these terms in various places, but this is the first time like you see the calculations for these. So 100 Truti make a Veda, 3 Vedas make a Lava, 3 Lavas make a Nimesha, 3 Nimeshas make a Kshana. So in this way. And there is Lagu, Nadika, Muhurta. Then Muhurta is a very common thing which is generally used because it is 1 hour, approximately two dandas. And then Prahara is uh, Ashtaprahara Leela we call, means 8 threes are 24 hours. So Ashtaprahara Leela means there is 8 sections of Leelas in the day of Krishna. So each Prahara has 3 hours, which makes a day 24 hours. Or Yama also, Ashtaka, Ashtayama Leela or Ashtaprahara Leela. So then day plus night, 4 plus 4 Praharas makes it 24 hours. And a fortnight, so in this way, it is many things are calculated. There is a month. Every season is 2 months. There is ayana. The sun moves for every 6 months in a particular way, and in this way, then a year is calculated. So the two ayanas, the two movement of the sun, the movement of the sun from north to south and south to north, completes one year for the human beings, but it completes one day and night for the demigods. So so that year for us is 12 months becomes one day and night for the demigods, which is their 24 hours, you would say. So in that way, the divisions of the time is described by Maitreya. So Does anyone have anything to ask at this point of time? Or I can finish this 15. So based on that, then years are calculated. So the solar year, as per the earthly calculation, is called as a samvatsara. 1 year is called as a samvatsara based on the solar time. That is 365 days. And there are other, based on other luminaries, then other things are in the Jupiter. It is parivatsara. So in that way, it is calculated. So different luminaries and planets rotate in their respective orbits of time, following their own years as follows. So for Jupiter, it is Parivatsara. 1 year is called a Parivatsara, which is like approximately equal to a humanly years of earthly years of 11 years forms Jupiter's 1 year. So in that way, for Moon, it is our 321 7 days makes one Anuvatsara, 1 year for in the Moon. So one, and it says like one should worship the sun once every 5 years because he enlivens with his heat and light, diminishes life duration, and thus releases from material illusion, enlarges the path of elevation to heaven. So in this way, he concludes the divisions of time. Because why you see why the sun is given importance here? Because the time basic calculation of time is done based on the sun's movement. So that is how important the sun is because or the time factor itself is like very much tied closely with the movements of the sun. So that is why the sun god is given predominance here. So this is how Maitreya is explaining the basic divisions of time, starting from Truti, which is the smallest time perceivable, and then from there it comes until a year, and then how it relates to the demigods, especially in the heavenly planets, and then further it could be drawn up to Brahmaloka. So in this way, time is a subjective but the most all-pervasive feature of the material universe. So now that Vidura has heard about the divisions of time, so he also asks certain questions. So before we see that, if anyone wants to add anything at this point of time, you can.
Prabhu,
Because
can you go to the 15th verse?
yes,
Why does it say the sun releases from material illusion?
in the sense, it's our. How do you understand this? Basically, you can reconcile in the sense of it's generally said light at least keeps you out of material ignorance in a sense because the lack of sun gives one depression. Just the lack of sun causes a lot of mental diseases and disorders. So just the presence of sun has so much effect on our consciousness. We are not day to day like, but you can say just the sun is there makes you like spiritually very elevated just because of the presence of sun without your endeavor to practice any spiritual life. At the same time, practicing spiritual life is like being, if you become transcendental it's not a problem, but in the general life sun plays a lot of role.
Then why does it diminish life duration?
Diminishes life duration because uh, not in the sense it is based on the time. Say your life is
Okay,
connected with time, and when the sun moves the time revolves. When the time revolves, your time in the material world, at least in this body, ends. So in that way it reduces life duration. At the same time it also helps you when you are living to actually, it supports in your daily life.
okay. Second thing is, do, I thought the Vedas generally follow the lunar calendar
Mhm.
or everything with respect to the lunar, and then here the description is given with respect to the solar calendar. Okay.
Means there is no contradiction. They both are there. Here in this place, they're speaking about Samvatsara, but in
Mm-hmm.
general, as you are saying, we also follow lunar calendar. So I don't see any big difference
No,
here.
no,
He's
I was
not saying
just
what should be used. He's just
okay.
saying as per the solar, like from the planet's perspective, he's calculating year. He's not calculating anything else.
One more thing, where is the position of the sun in the universe?
You're asking if the sun is fixed, if other planets are rotating, if the earth is fixed and other planets are rotating. Are
No, I
you...
see the 14 planetary system. Garbhodakasha is Vishnu, topmost is Brahma.
Mhm.
Which planetary system or where is the sun exactly? Or where is the Dhruva Loka also? Which planetary system?
Yeah, I can, means it's a total fifth canto subject matter. I need to
Okay,
show you the chart and it will be like a big discussion. So I don't think it's very relevant here.
okay,
Even though
okay,
it's definitely connected here, I won't take it because it's a complete fifth canto thing. It's just, it goes on, there is no end to it.
okay. Next year we'll take up.
Yeah, probably I'll skip the fifth canto. Let's see, whatever is in the book we will present, but like there is not so much of a clarity for me also.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
So
Hare
when
Krishna, sir. Hare
we,
Krishna, Prabhu.
like,
Dandavad Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the Kala. So I am time, I am the time also, he said, right?
yes,
So he is Kala. So why every moment will be auspicious? Why we some like some months are auspicious and we do
mm,
more auspicious things and all. Every time, every moment, time is Krishna. When time is Krishna, then why every moment will be auspicious, right?
yeah.
Yeah, why don't like we tell some days only auspicious, some days only like we don't do
Much
like this
extra
time and this
space.
time. So why should we tell like that?
Okay. There are multiple ways in looking at this. Say, for example, Srila Prabhupada wrote millions of words, hundreds of pages, like thousands of pages, and had so many conversations. Srila Prabhupada personally did not speak much about Purushottam Mass.
Mm.
Means if you search the Veda base or all these things, you may find a couple of mentions about Purushottam Mass. That is also, he just spoke about it. He did not say we should be following like this or like that.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, uh, how the Vedic tradition is also arranged is, say for example, Ekadashi. It's like very sincerely for following it has spiritual potencies, but also how it is managed in a way is like that. In general life, we tend to lose focus about the spiritual life because in the course of our daily life, we tend to lose focus a little bit. We tend to slack. So once in a 15 days, when you say today is Ekadashi, you keep aside everything. You reduce your eating, you reduce your sleeping, you reduce your other material activities. Not that what we do is material, but in just being like too much worried about that. Just keep aside them a little bit. Focus on your relationship with Krishna, which is eternal. So once in a 15 days, these Ekadashis act like a reminder. They are Krishna is giving you a retreat is like a small retreat means getting back yourself from your regular life and looking life from a higher bigger perspective so that you can become serious in your spiritual life. So similarly we have like Kartik or we have now Purushottam Mass going on. So for devotees every day is actually auspicious as you're saying Krishna is time. So there is nothing like good, bad, or anything like that. You can chant holy name any part of the day. There is no uh, rules applicable to that. So for chanting Hare Krishna or any part of the day, any part of the year, all timing is as long as we are attentive, it's the best thing to do. So and Srila Prabhupada always encourage. So these special occasions we need extra help to become more focused in spiritual life. So using that in that perspective is not a problem. But we should not be getting over carried away. Oh, this is Purushottam month. I'll do this. I'll do that. We don't need to show to the world about anything. Rather, we can always practice that standard if possible all throughout our lives. Otherwise, at least during these months, during these days, like Ekadashi can act like extra, mm, like extra motivating days or months for our spiritual life. Does that answer your question, Madhuri?
Yeah, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Suman Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, that only. I was just thinking, doesn't this months or days act like a motivating factor, like just for motivation? But in reality, we should endeavor to carry that consciousness all 365 days of the year. But since we are unable to do, we take it like motivation.
Yeah, if we follow those days like Ekadashi, if you just follow sincerely, then you get a taste. Then other days you're not just going to go completely like relaxed in your spiritual practice. So the effort that you put on that day will help you, inspire you to carry out for other days also. So that is why. And this is not
Yes,
the only reason for it. There are more reasons to Ekadashi. Krishna can achieve with multiple purposes and multiple reasons for having something like Ekadashi.
like some things are there told if you do this in Purushottam, your residence in Golok or Vaikuntha is guaranteed. Then, if it is guaranteed with this thing, then what's the motivation in doing other angas of devotional service? I just had this doubt. Sometimes it's quoted in many other scriptures, many places. You do this,
Yeah,
you will go back to the garden. Anyone who offers tulsi or anyone who drinks Charamrit can is guaranteed a place in Goloka at the time of death upon quitting this life. Then it's just okay. Now I've taken this, so I am assured. So where's the no, why are these things said?
these are things told in some sense more like multiple levels of understanding this. One, I can see this is when we have fruitive mentality, then the scriptures can trap us using that as like a bait, just inspiring people to start following things. At the same time, unless one purifies his consciousness, like it's not easy to enter Goloka or anything like that. At the same time, we can just say these things will not act because the scriptures are saying it will act. So how do we reconcile this? Is say you also get like honorary doctorates, right? But not everybody can get those honorary doctorates. It's not that a person can get a doctorate without going to college. Yes, he can without going to having any formal education. You can have a doctorate. But what is your chance? You can't just wait, oh, someone will call me and give doctorate. You have to be doing something. Then it naturally comes. So yeah, so these kind of special offers are there. It does not matter. But are you going to be like fortunate to make it? We don't know. So better make your personal efforts. Then Krishna is anywhere assuring, Ma Manusmara Yudhacha. If you continue to remember me while you're living, then you will remember at the time of death also.
I mean, someone was asking me. It's written in Nectar of Devotion. If you take Charnamrit, guaranteed this life. Then I've taken, so guaranteed. That's it. Lord is saying you should have faith.
There are more things written in about offenses and everything also, so it's not that simple. At the same time, it's not that just by taking Charanamrita one cannot go back to Godhead. But there is a star mark on the top that we forget to see, which is not put there. So that star mark will come as one practices. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So in the 16th and the 17th verses, Vidura is going to have some more extra inquiries on the time factor. So he says, I understand the lifespans of beings in the Swarga, Pitra, and earthly planets. Vidura is saying this. Please describe the lifespan of others who are beyond the Kalpa of Brahma. Kalpa means a day of Brahma. That means they also have a lifespan, something close to Brahma, which is beyond a day of Brahma. Because you are a self-realized person, he is telling to Maitreya Rishi, you can understand the movements of eternal time and can see everything by the power of mystic vision. So since he is now wanting to know more about the time frame which is beyond Kalpa, I somehow miss putting a chart here for the whole thing. Maybe even in between the session, I can pull it out from internet and post it here. That it speaks about like what is a yuga and four yugas makes a divya yuga and so many such yugas make one manvantara. Then so many manvantaras make one day of Brahma, and so many days of Brahma makes us 100 years, like that. So here the link to the next section, what Maitreya is going to discuss is, Maitreya is going to first explain the calculation of the yugas, because that is the smallest of the units. Because now question is about Brahma's lifespan, but the smallest unit is like how you want, when he asked about time, he went to Paramanu. Similarly, in terms of Brahma's life, if you want to calculate, the smallest unit is yugas. So first Maitreya is going to begin from explaining how much time is the yuga, and from there he will go up until Brahma's life. So I hope what I said makes sense. So the question here by Vidura is, what about Brahma's lifespan? Little bit like that. What about people who live beyond a day of Brahma? What about their lifespan? Please describe. So to describe a day of Brahma, the smallest unit is yuga. First, we should understand how much it takes for a yuga, and from there, how many yugas combined together make one Divya Yuga, and how many Divya Yugas make one Manvantara, and one how many Manvantaras make one day of Brahma. So like that there are subdivisions. So now Maitreya Rishi is going to begin to explain what is a yuga. So he says one Chatur Yuga, which is also sometimes called as one Divya Yuga. The Chatur Yuga contains four yugas, which is Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali, which is equal to the 12,000 years of the demigods. So there are a lot of people uh, in India who have made theories out of this one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, in other places also. So it says that one Chatur Yuga is 12,000 years, 12,000 years, and then say currently we are in Dwapar Yuga, we are not in Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is already over, and they have all kinds of theories. I don't want to take names of people, so it's, I won't say it's funny, it's like sometimes unfortunate. They have such theories and so many people follow, so it's like quite unfortunate, I would say, because in this one verse they just took partially, they did not see the other verse which says that here they are speaking in terms of the demigod years. So the 19th verse speaks about this, the demigod years. Kali Yuga is 1200 years, Dwapara is 2400, Treta is 3600, and Satya is 4800, and total it makes it 12,000 years. So they quote this verse and make a whole theory out of it. But the idea is that the previous verse speaks how one Chaturyuga is equal to 12,000 years of the demigods, not just the human years. That is why if you see in the previous chart also, we finished that comparing it with the day of the demigods. 1 year we defined for the humans and then said it is equal to 1 day of the demigods. So from there the calculation was carried forward here, calling one Chaturyuga is equal to 12,000 years, but Divya, but that means the demigods years. So
Hare
that's
Krishna, what is the normal lifespan of probably on average of a demigod? In 800.
on it of a demigod you're saying, according to their span of life, it's 100 years, it is said generally. According to their time, it is 100 years generally.
The earthly calculations, Prabhu?
Earthly calculation, for every yuga it is different.
Okay. So, Prabhu, after one Chatur Yuga is over, uh, annihilation occurs, because I know we discussed this topic in previous session about annihilation, but I think I forgot. So, after one Chatur Yuga, annihilation occurs, or it again starts the cycle of Satyuga, Treta, Dwapar, Kali Yuga?
Yeah, in terms of the destruction, the types of destruction that is or annihilation given in the Canto 12, there is no destruction which is specifically given in between the Chaturyugas. What is given uh, is the daily destruction. Our bodies gets destroyed based on time. The Nitya destruction, that is one, and then end of the day of Brahma. When the day of Brahma begins, there is a partial dissolution, and also there is the full dissolution at the end of life of Brahma, and also when we get liberated, then that is called as Atyantika liberation, that is Atyantika destruction. You actually destroy your material identity. That is one kind of destruction. These four are given, but I have also heard, uh, I haven't got like a clear, I'm like searching for some clear verses. There is some kind of destruction in between the Manvantaras, because that is why you see each Manu has a different Indra, different demigods, different seven sages. Their sons are different, their lineages is different. So each Manu has a seems like each Manu in between the Manu's transfer also there is some kind of destruction happening, and also between the yugas there may not be like a major destruction of the whole thing, but there will surely be some kind of cleansing so that they, if you see even through during the corona period when we just stopped things for a month, and all of most of us here are, means know India, like there were photographs and everything that how the sky started becoming blue in Delhi and all the pollution started subsiding. Nature has ability to regenerate itself. We are the only hindrance. When we go out of the picture, the nature can easily fix itself. So there is no need of a annihilation again to get into Satya Yuga. Rather, it is just the people will be wound up pretty much, and then nature will have probably some time in the Sandhya to regenerate, and then there will be more Sattvagun naturally.
So, Prabhu, after the end of Kalpa, which is the day of Brahmaji, I was doing some calculation based off your chart. It is like 996 Chaturyuga, close to 1000 Chaturyuga, which they generally say. So, you said that after the end of the day of Brahmaji, there is some annihilation, and I believe that annihilation also includes the heavenly planetary system, but not, of course, the Satyaloka, which is the residence of Brahmaji. That complete annihilation occurs after the lifespan of Brahmaji, which is 100 years. So, including the Satyaloka, all 14 planetary system. But after the day of Brahmaji, which is one kalpa, some sort of annihilation occurs, including the heavenly planets. Right? That's my understanding, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right.
Okay, Prabhu. Okay.
So now he just explained the calculation of the yuga. For human years, it is multiplied, but for the demigod years, it is 1200, 2400, 36, and 48. So in total, it is 1200. Is Harshal here? How do I stop annotation here? So
Oh,
then, sorry, somebody was scribbling on the screen. I'm just, yeah.
Prabhu,
Yes,
can I speak something?
yes, Suma.
So this is what Prabhupada is writing in the purport of first canto, third chapter, verse number 15. According to Sripad Sridhar Swami, the original commentator of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is not always a devastation after the change of every Manu. Yet, this indentation after the period of Chakshusha Manu took place in order to show some wonders to Satyavata. Jiva Goswami has given definite proofs from authoritative scriptures that there is always a devastation after the end of each and every Manu. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has also supported this, and he has quoted from Bhagavatamrita about this inundation after each Manu. Apart from this, the Lord, in order to show favor to Satyavata in this particular period, incarnated himself.
Yeah, that it is kind of was very obvious because every Manu has a different set of Indra. If you read the 8th canto, you will see this Indra, this Manvantara, he was Indra, he was Indra, these were the seven sages, these were the he is the head of the sages, and then Manu Putras were this, and the Lord incarnated in this form. So that you will see for every Manu. So Indra cannot be different, just like that. That is why it was obvious, but I haven't got hold of those commentaries and the verses that they are quoting. That I haven't got hold of yet.
Okay, Prabhu.
Because it is not
Yeah.
very explicit right in the Bhagavatam itself. It never says about a destruction after Manvantara.
Okay.
It
Okay,
does
Prabhu.
not say like that.
Sorry, I just got this purport. I thought to
No, means
share.
I have also read, like based on that only I'm saying it becomes very obvious that there is a destruction around between every manvantara, but it is not counted as such like a destruction in the Canto 12. The Canto 12
Prabhupada is saying as inundation.
yeah, inundation. It's not more of a destruction, because with the destruction, the structures also can go, but with inundation, the structures remain, just the people go.
Yeah, that's what Prabhupada is saying.
Yeah, so between the yugas also something like that could be possible, but not necessary for the nature to rejuvenate just by itself.
Yes, Prabhu, sorry, continue.
So then after discussing about the yugas, now there's more discussion about the yugas. So yuga during which a particular yuga dharma is practiced, it's the time duration between two yuga sandhyas. There is when Kali, say for example Dwapara and Kali, between Dwapara and Kali, certain portions of Dwapara towards the end and the beginning of Kali combined together form the yuga sandhya. So between two yuga sandhyas is the actual yuga, and that is when the dharma is practiced of the particular yuga. That becomes the duration of the yuga. And a decline of dharma is given as in Satya Yuga, dharma was completely maintained, but it gradually decreased by 1/4 part in every yuga. And day and night in higher planets, that is also discussed. Above Svargaloka, the duration of one day is equal to 1000 Chaturyugas. Ritesh Prabhu, you just mentioned about this. The night during which Brahma sleeps is also of the same duration. So it
Yep.
is 1000 Chatur Yugas.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah. So now he's speaking about next level of time. Now we saw the yugas, the combination of four different yugas make one Divya Yuga or one Chatur Yuga. And then now we are coming to the next level, which is the duration of the Manus. So at the end of Brahma's night, the creation of the planets from Svarga Loka to Patala Loka takes place. Because at the end of his day, it was like destroyed, and then he stays through the lifespans of 14 manus. That means in a day of Brahma there are 14 manus, and ruling of time of a manu is given, which is little more than a 71 Chatur Yugas. And in each manvantara there are 7 sages, the primary sages, the demigods, the set of demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, all these people, and Indra, who is the head of the demigods, and Manu himself. Each manvantara has a different Manu. They appear simultaneously. They all come appear simultaneously, but the Manu's descendants appear gradually. Like say for example, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, they appear together from Brahmaji. From Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa came like Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti, Uttanapad, and Priyavrat, and then they gradually gave birth to various lineages. So that is why the 7 sages, the demigods Indra and Manu, they appear simultaneously. However, the descendants of Manu, which is also a characteristic of each Manvantara, the descendants appear gradually. And that you see, you can even like today morning also we were hearing from Radhika Raman Prabhu in the Pathways to Perfection series, like how the Bhagavatam itself is like pretty much uh, structured around the Manus. If you see the literally from here, from the after Maitreya, during the conversation of Maitreya, it's going to take off with Swayambhu Manu, and it will go on, continues to go to all the different dynasties through them. The various lineages, the various descendants of the Manus will be described one after another. Canto after canto will be seen that. So Manus are a very important personalities in the universal management. So in the daily creation of Brahma, the 3 planetary systems revolve and the residents appear and disappear according to their karmas. So during the Manvantras, the Lord appears in different incarnations, Manvantara avatar, as Manu and others, and maintains the universe. So the Lord also appears in different forms in certain manvantras. We will see how the Lord appears as Gaur in multiple manvantras. One in Chakshusha manvantara, one in Vajrasvata manvantara. So does anybody has any questions here? So the idea from the previous slide is there are Chatur Yugas, and one Chatur Yuga is equal to the 4 Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali, and 71 such Chatur Yugas form one day or one the life of Manu. One Manu rules up to 71 Chaturyugas, and 14 such Manus make a day of Brahma. If there are no questions, we can go to the next section. What do you have? So the destruction at the end of Kalpa is the next topic that Maitreya is going to discuss. He says how the Lord, at the end of the day of Brahma's day, the three worlds are annihilated. The jivas remain in that dissolution and everything is quiet. So at the time the three worlds disappear. The three worlds here is the Pathala Loka, which is the lower planetary systems, the middle planetary systems, which are the earthly planetary systems, and then the upper planetary systems, which are up to the Swarga Loka. Swarga and Bhuloka, or the middle planetary systems, and then the lower planetary systems. These three are actually annihilated. And the sun and moon are without glare. You see here, the sun and moon are not destroyed. They remain, but they remain without a glare, without their light. So during this time, the residents of Maharloka, distressed by the fire emanating from the mouth of Sankarshana, moved to Janaloka. So that means these planets are not destroyed. Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. So at the beginning of devastation, all the oceans swell and cover the three worlds. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu remains in that water, lying on Ananta, while being glorified by the residents of Janaloka. So this is the scene generally at the end of Kalpa. The Padma Kalpa is only very special because in that Brahmaji also goes to sleep inside Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. The whole creation is taken back. That is why in the last chapters that when we saw about partial creation after dissolution, that the lotus came out and Brahma, even though he was already born, but still he was again doing everything from the beginning. But in general, this is the scenario at the time of a partial dissolution. Does anyone have any questions?
Three worlds are destroyed, then how Janaloka, Tapaloka,
The three
Satyaloka is
words,
still there?
when you use the three words, the same terminology sometimes is like used in different places in different ways. Here, the terminology three clearly mentions up to Swarga. That
Mm-hmm.
means Swargaloka, earthly planets, and the lower planetary systems is called as three. What do you call it? Three up. What do you call it?
Planetary system.
Three worlds. The three worlds here is mentioning those three planetary systems. Because it's very obvious by these statements that the Janaloka, Maharloka, and like the Satyaloka is not like this one.
So, Prabhu, the residents of Mahaloka are so empowered that they can just like that move to Janlok.
Seems like that.
Then they might as well be in Janlok, right?
Janaloka. See, you may sometimes go as a guest when you are in a difficulty, when you are having a like a flood or something. You can go and take refuge in a particular place, but still you would like your own home. So they have flavor difference, but for emergency they can take shelter in another place.
So the Navayogendras are residents of Mahalok?
I have to check though, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have one curiosity actually, Prabhu.
Yes.
So, Prabhu, this time factor is all material, right? And in spiritual world, there is no time factor, right? So, and we see that all activities of a material world revolves around the time. So, morning we do something, in noon we do something, evening we do something, and night we sleep. So, our whole life revolves around this time factor. So, I was just curious that how the life without time factor looks like. And my question is, does any canto of Srimad Bhagavatam explains how the life looks like in a spiritual world without this time factor? Because with my vision or limited knowledge, I'm seeing everything is related to time factor. So I'm just very curious and fascinated that how the life without time factor looks in the spiritual world. So does any part of the Srimad Bhagavatam explains this? that's just my question. So whenever we go to that canto, we can talk about it because that's out of the subject matter of this topic.
Yeah, Canto 10 speaks about Vrindavan pastimes. They are beyond the limits of material time. For that matter, all the incarnations of the Lord, they are beyond the limits of the material time. So I would like to first summarize your question and then come to a very crucial point. You are saying how time is the ruling factor in this universe which moves our lives, but there is no, and this is material you called, and then you said there is no time in the spiritual world. So because all the activities of the material world is guided or governed or pushed by the time, how is it life in a place where there is no effect of this time? So is that
Yeah,
any kind
yeah,
of
that's
about that?
yeah. Yes, Prabhu,
So
exactly
what
because Mhm.
yeah, go on. Bro.
yes, Prabhu. I was just saying that means what the residents of spiritual world will do without a time factor and just curiosity. So yeah, uh, I would definitely want to read if any canto offers light that how is that life in the spiritual world without time factor. That's just fascination actually.
So the idea is there is time factor in the spiritual world, but the idea of the time there is under the control of the Krishna. The time factor does not move or control Krishna's life. Rather, Krishna's pastimes control the time factor. Whereas in the material world, with respect to the living entities, we don't have any control on the time. The time controls our lives.
So
So that's
when you say there is time,
why we also call Ashtaprahara Leela or Ashtakaliya Leela.
yeah.
Means
So Prabhu, when you say there is time factor in the spiritual world, which means that there is also morning over there and evening,
Krishna goes
night.
grazing, Krishna does pastimes with the gopis in the night.
Okay.
So all these different pastimes happen with because their time facilitates the pastimes. For the sake of having pastimes, time is required.
I understood it, Prabhu, now. Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
it is
Thanks,
not
Prabhu.
that there is no time exists in the spiritual world. The time exists as a factor to facilitate the pastimes of Krishna.
Understood, Prabhu, now it makes sense. Thanks, Prabhu.
So now the next section that Vidura and Maitreya are discussing is after the destruction of the Kalpa, now they are going to the next level, which is the lifespan of Brahma. Now that we have seen what happens at the end of Brahma, first we saw the yugas, then we saw 71 yugas put together will become one Manvantara, and then we saw 14 Manvantara becomes a day of Brahma, and then we saw at the end of the day of Brahma what happens, the destruction. Now like that, how many days are there and how what is the life of Brahma we are saying, and this is the question asked by Vidura. So he wanted to know about people whose lifetime is more than a kalpa of Brahma. So to explain that, he he built up the case from Yuga, Manvantara, and end of the day of Brahma. Now finally he is coming to the lifespan of Brahma. So thus days and nights pass even for Brahma, and his life also comes to an end. So so one's life generally endures for only 100 years in terms of the times in different planets. So the Parardha is a half of Brahma's life. The 50 years of Brahma's life is called as Parardha. The first Parardha, so now Maitreya is speaking about the current Brahma. The first Parardha is already over and the second has begun currently. So Brahma Kalpa, then he is speaking about Brahma Kalpa, which is the first day in the first half of Brahma's life, which is also called as Shvetavaraha Kalpa, during which Brahma is born along with the four Vedas. That is the first time Brahma took birth. That is the first day of first Parartha of Brahma's life. And the second Kalpa in the first Parartha is called as Padma Kalpa. This is the thing that the sages wanted to know about. They said we don't want to know about, but we want to know about Vidura and Maitreya's conversation. But Shukadeva Goswami said, yes, I'll explain Sutta Goswami. And in the course of explaining Vidura and Maitreya conversation, he also covered about Padma Kalpa. So the next kalpa is called as Padma Kalpa because the universal lotus again comes from the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. The description of this kalpa is what we saw in the chapter 3.6. I think 3.6. No, 3.8, where Brahmaji took birth. after the partial destruction. So Varaha Kalpa is the first day of the second half of Brahma's life, during which Lord Hari appeared as boar.
This is Svetavara.
The second one, the first one is Shvetavara in the first Kalpa. The current one is not Shvetavara. The Brahma Kalpa, that Kalpa is otherwise called as Shvetavara. So the insignificance of Brahma's lifespan and the universe is in front of the Lord. So he's going to continue to explain the position of Krishna in relation to material time. So this Dviparartha, that is the entire life of Brahma, two halves, 50 years, is only a nimesha for the Lord, is less than a second for whom? For the Lord, who is unchanging, unlimited, beginningless, and the soul of the universe. Jagadatmanaha. So who's that Jagadatmanaha? Who's the soul of the universe? The soul of the universe is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So time is the controller of anyone who is bodily conscious with lifespans between Paramanu and Dviparartha. So our life could be as small as a Paramanu, or our life could be as big as the Dviparartha, which is the biggest span of lifetime within this universe for any living entity. But this time cannot control the Supreme Lord, even though he is also existing within the same universal shell. This time cannot control the Supreme Lord. So the universe is with 500 million yojanas. It gives the dimensions and the layers of elements covering the universe is each 10 times thicker than the one before. Looks as small as a Paramanu when they come out of the bodily pores of Mahavishnu. So you can imagine the universe is so big, it's like unimaginable for material intelligence. Even just this planet is so huge, what to speak of the whole universe. And when it comes out of the bodily ports of Mahavishnu, it just looks like a Paramanu. Then we can understand how big Mahavishnu must be. So, and then this is just Mahavishnu, and then Sri Krishna, who's like way behind. So Sri Krishna is therefore the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Mahavishnu is eternal and supreme. So this is how he ends the time description of time factor. So just to have a recap, he spoke about he spoke in the first four verses. He spoke about the calculation of time from divisions of matter, and after he divided the matter, then he spoke about what are the divisions of time, and then he gave a whole description of different divisions of time and how they are measured. And then Vidura inquired about, okay, I understand the small divisions of time. What about those people who are beyond one kalpa? So then to explain that, Madhu Maitreya Rishi explained what is a yuga, what is a manvantara, what is a day of Brahma, what happens at the end of the day of Brahma, and then he explained Brahma's lifespan, and then he went on to say that how the Brahma's lifespan may be so big, the time may have effect from anywhere from Paramanu to Adviparar, the lifespan of all the living entities, but they cannot actually have, the time cannot have any effect on the Supreme Lord, either it is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Mahavishnu, or Sri Krishna. So in that way, he glorifies Sri Krishna and calling that the all-pervading energy of the Supreme Lord. The time energy is so powerful. His energy is so powerful. So what to speak of the energy of the Supreme Lord? So in this way, he concludes this topic in glorification of the Supreme Lord. So it would be nice for us also to meditate how time just tickles and takes away our life. So Bhagavatam explains anybody who is hearing and chanting about the Supreme Lord, there that time is well utilized. Otherwise, the rising and the setting of the sun only takes away the human being's life. Let us pray that we can understand this time factor and utilize it in Krishna's service with whatever we have in our hands. Thank you very much for your patient attention. If you have any questions, we can take now. Or we can complete. I completed on time with the clock.